So here is the been using these where the scrolling goes like this, so now I don't know how to scroll anymore. Once again, my phone is beeping, though I'm absolutely sure nobody's sending me a message. It's doing something. So here is first point of my topic for today outside of gaming, which is racism, the funny topic. And I'm going to be focusing on two topics. This is today's first topic, the immigration map. And the second topic is going to be Homo sapiens and its evolutionary history. I'm here and there going to be citing references, but the stuff I mentioned should be, for both sides, reference free, something they understand instinctively. Once I start making assumptions based on the data, then we can argue. But the data itself in the second part of the presentation, that is the history of the Homo sapiens and such, should be commonly accepted. At least I haven't seen anybody really disagree with the map that we came out of Africa and expanded across the planet. I mean, nobody's really contesting that as far as I know. But I'm going to be showing some interesting data about it. But today's first map, this countries in blue are countries that receive more immigrants than than immigrates out of them. And in the bubble map, you can see the paths of who's immigrating where. And this is combined data from 2010 to 2015. So there are a couple of key points I'd like to show. This one. You now understand, looking at this particular picture, why I dislike the Finnish media's picture of the world. Reality is very different from what they picture. And this is for world. Everybody from Eastern Europe and former Soviet states is moving to Russia because life in those countries has become hard for the local people, and Russia is maintaining a policy of stuff and such. And of the former Soviet bloc countries, a lot of people are moving to Kazakhstan because Kazakhstan is quite wealthy. Life there is quite comfortable. If you see Kazakhstani women, you'll note that all of them are dressed in the finest of clothing. And I'm not contesting the Western ability to dress, but you haven't seen a dressed woman until you've seen every Kazakhstani woman everywhere. Everybody is wearing a fur coat and the finest clothing, whatever their style happens to be. So this is the two data points that I truly like to show you. So considering that most of the black immigrants, according to this map, coming from Europe are either Nigerian, Sudanese, or Somali. And those three countries are known not to be the most easiest of societies to live in. The understanding that has formed in Finland that black people are hard, but in a way straightforward. I don't mean simple, but they usually stick to their culture, if you will. They aren't ones to very much experiment. They are themselves as they are. You get what you see. And you'll notice that a lot of these countries from which immigrants are coming to Finland are known to be on the, how shall I put this, hellhole spectrum. Balkans, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Nigeria, Sudan, Somalia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, then Nepal, which has really stood out as being one of the really good immigrant countries. I think this is Myanmar, no, Thailand, which is the Thai wife exchange program, Vietnam, which is mostly because they fought against the superpower and won, and we have that in common. Philippines with the nurses, and China because they're basically moving everywhere. They're just leaving the country. India is working in the Arab countries, as you can tell. But it's not a relationship that doesn't make the Indians themselves rich because of how many are moving to the two top English speaking countries. It is making the Indians themselves as well rich. And there you can see the Syrian migrant crisis, who is actually being impacted. There's a few other noticeable, interesting points that I have seen. A couple of these countries are clearly transit stations. People are moving from the Eastern Bloc and former Eastern Bloc to Russia to raise their standard of living, from which they're moving to Kazakhstan or the West. And here's the US situation. You can see everybody wants to get to America, and America wants to get to a very few places. Essentially, how shall I put this politely? The richest Caribbean islands, the very small nation in South America, which is on the coast and is almost like New England without the New Englandese, but not the Nazi colony. The Benelux countries, not Germany, but the richest countries that have a German culture, and Sweden, Kazakhstan. That's that whole immigration is most likely entirely just PewDiePie. To be a little political about this, so you can see the Japanese are not liking their country. South Koreans are liked. The reality is that, in terms of what the country is actually like, Japan wants to be what South Korea is, but ends up being the safe haven of the people of the certain war. And South Korea is what Japan wants to be. The country from which the emigration is to the super rich or the super luxurious countries only, and from every local country emigrating to, the nut hellhole. And there's a few other points. You can see people escaping to the highland. Ethiopia is known throughout African history for being relatively a safe country. Relatively. So migrants from there are mostly going to the very rich or the luxurious destinations. And this is roughly indicative that the amount of Somalis moving to the US is the same as the amount of Somalis moving to Scandinavia. Though most of them are just going to any neighboring country. That's what you get for having 20 years of uninterrupted war. And here's basically UK. This is why they're talking about some level of restraint into the immigration into the country. So is US. Like, perhaps grading the status of come here now, please. And Iceland is just moving to Norway. Nobody's moving to Iceland, which is very why I'm thinking of moving to Iceland, just to change them. Moving there, but moving out. Finland. Engine running. What else? Kazakhstan. Rich country. Though, considering this is 2015 up to, so things may have changed. net migration from North Korea. That's very interesting. Here and there to the UK and Kazakhstan. Some migrating from China. It's interesting. So that's one of the maps I wanted to show you. Would you look at that? How much Japan just wants to leave their own. It's not what, it's cracked up to be. South Korea is the place, according to this data. Sweden is getting a lot of countries and then moving to Finland. Canada is essentially the destination for like a lot of the people of the world. It's well equipped for that, let's just say. So is Russia. Still in Argentina and Australia. US not so much, but it is. In US you still see some rich people moving to European countries, but in Canada you see almost nobody. It's a bit richer. The people who are moving out of Canada are mostly moving to the US. So then I would say it's work or ideological. This is why I consider the whole Ukraine crisis a little weird in terms of what the Russians benefit from it. So it's weird attacking a country whose population is emigrating to you when your population is declining. But from the point of view of border control, yeah, I understand it. That's about it. I hope this particular map and video sparks some discussion. The Mecca, literally. That's literally the bonus that it gives. Otherwise, it might be this country. But in this case, it's all these countries in a spider web. This one gets 2. This one gets a few here and there, and considering it's supposed to be like what we fought the Middle Eastern War number 1 for, but in this Saudi Arabia. But nothing beats this. That's the literal reality of the world. The fact of the China-Japan thing is that South Korea is winning. Blue bubble of 300,000 as only Northeastern Asian country. If you go south, the next one is Thailand, which is very much known for attracting immigrants. Everybody else is in the red. Then is Singapore. And then Australia. Everybody else in what we'd consider traditional Asia, which is east of Iran. That's the Middle East. So we'd consider it Asia. So South Korea is winning that particular conflict. They're doing exactly what they ought to be doing. They're getting branded as the young people's destination in highly developed Asia. China has a sharp population decline while having a sharp immigration crisis. It's very bad. Japan is the same. US has a population decline as well, but look at the blue. So is UK. Look at the blue. And Russia. It's an enormously large blue blob. For somebody who is not very much liked in the world scene, they're tolerated. Or Turkey with 1.4 million. You can notice that Finland is thought to be not as good as Sweden or Norway or Denmark. Denmark is probably, yeah, Denmark is close. They're probably that far down because they have a very nationalist hard border policy, I believe. I believe it's a reflection of Finland's numbers while going a slight bit lower. It would make sense in a national like security way. This I want to do. A map of live information of nation states publishing's update of who's immigrating, like updated whenever the data comes in. I really want to do that. That would be insanely valuable. That would be literally worth its price in platinum. You want palladium instead? Gold is pretty cheap. Titanium, I think that's cheaper than gold. You want uranium, that's pretty expensive. Still, weapons grade super enriched uranium in a metal box. Anyway, I'm gonna make the next podcast soon. See you there.